A mistrial was declared today for the man charged with wounding a Nash County deputy during a shootout on I-95. Jared Ford was facing charges of attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon from the incident that was caught on video in February of 2021. WRAL's Keenan Willard explains what comes next.
A mistrial in Nash County. Nash Sheriff Keith Stone says jurors were unable to reach a unanimous verdict in the case of Jared Ford. The Florida man's accused of shooting Nash deputy William Toney during a traffic stop on I-95 2 years ago. Toney survived the shooting but had to retire due to his injuries.
If they had a solid case, they wouldn't have had a mistrial. You know, it wouldn't have been a hung jury.
Body camera footage from the incident showed Ford pulling a gun from his waistband during a struggle with deputies, with a dash camera showing Ford firing at them in a shootout by the side of the interstate. Ford confessed to shooting Toney during a previous federal hearing last year. Stone told WRAL News jurors only deliberated for a short time Wednesday morning before telling the judge they were deadlocked, ending the trial. We asked Stone why jurors couldn't reach a decision, but he deferred any comments on the case to the DA. When we asked District Attorney Jeff Marsigli, he declined to comment, saying he wasn't in the courtroom for most of the trial.
I'm sure at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, my son will be vindicated.
Ford's father says he believes the jury saw inconsistencies in the case against his son. WRAL's requested transcripts of the final days of the trial from the Nash court reporter. Marsigli says his office is planning to try Ford again on these charges, and they'll select a different prosecutor to lead the case.
And so we'll prepare for it. We'll get ready. We'll prepare for the next fight.
Keenan Willard, WRAL News, Nash County.
Keenan mentioned Ford's federal trial. Ford received the maximum sentence, 10 years in prison for having a firearm as a felon. A man charged with shooting a deputy during a traffic stop confessed to the shooting today while appearing in federal court. The shooting happened 18 months ago and shut down I-95 in Nash County at the time. WRAL's Keenan Willard was the only TV reporter in court today when the suspect was convicted. And right after the verdict, Keenan spoke with a deputy who was shot. Here's the story you will see only on WRAL.
Well, I think the big moment was the confession on the stand.
Nobody was expecting this. 34-year-old Jared Ford is charged with shooting a Nash County deputy 4 times after being stopped for speeding on I-95 last February. William Toney was shot in both arms and the hip. He credits the department's emergency response training for getting him first aid on the scene.
Now, I think that was a big part of why we survived what happened to us that day.
Well, we trained for stuff like that, but you know, reality hits when it's you, or when it was me, so. And it sucks because my partner's not able to come back to work anymore. And losing a partner is never easy.
Today, Jared Ford went to trial in federal court, charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm in connection with the shooting. Ford chose to go without an attorney and represent himself. While questioning one of the deputies, he repeatedly mentioned that he'd had a gun on him during the incident. Judge Terrence Boyle said, "You understand this is about whether you're a felon in possession of a firearm, correct? And you just admitted you had a firearm several times." Ford later took the stand as a witness and fully confessed to having a handgun and shooting the deputy. It took 12 minutes for the jury to return their verdict. Guilty.
Today was a good day. Today was a good day for law enforcement. Today was a good day for our criminal justice system because 12 average citizens served as jurors and they found the defendant guilty of being a felon in possession of a firearm.
After the trial, we spoke with Ford's father, who says his son needs an attorney but has fired everyone that's been assigned to his case. Jake Ford says his son's a disabled veteran who struggled with his mental health.
He does have some issues as far as psychologically. From when he was in service.
The Nash County Sheriff says today's verdict sends a message after weeks of violence against law enforcement.
We've had 2 incidents in North Carolina in the last month where these officers leave their home, shut the door, and someone else has to go into that home because they never make it home.
Keenan Willard, WRAL News.
Ford is set to be sentenced on the gun charge in November. Despite his confession today, Ford still has to be tried in state court for the charges of shooting the deputy. That trial is set for early next year. For the first time, we're seeing video of a shootout on I-95 that wounded a Nash County deputy 2 years ago. The man charged with opening fire on deputies during a traffic stop is on trial and representing himself. WRAL's Keenan Willard shows us the video at the heart of this case.
Arguments began today in the trial of 34-year-old Jared Ford. The Florida man's charged with 2 counts of attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Investigators say he opened fire on 2 Nash Sheriff's deputies after being pulled over in February 2021. Today, the state played body camera and dash cam footage from both deputies. WRAL was allowed to record the video, but not the sound. It shows former Deputy Shelby Smith pulling over a silver Mercedes sedan for speeding on I-95. Walking up, she speaks with Ford, the only person in the car. Smith told the court she thought she smelled marijuana inside Ford's car and decided to search the vehicle. Body camera footage from her partner, Deputy William Toney, shows what happened next. Ford appears to resist as the deputies try to detain him. A struggle ensues, and Ford pulls a handgun from his waistband. Dash camera footage shows the deputies and Ford struggle off screen. Moments later, the deputies come back into frame, with bullets striking the ground around them. Tony's body camera shows he was wounded in both arms, and other angles show Ford lying on the ground, where he'd also been shot multiple times. On video, Deputy Smith can be seen yelling commands at Ford, and then firing one last shot. On the stand, Smith says she fired again because Ford had dragged himself back over to his gun, saying, "Mr. Ford was trying to kill my partner. Mr. Ford tried to kill me." Deputy Toney survived the incident, but had to retire from the sheriff's office. Ford already confessed to shooting the deputy during a previous federal hearing back in August. He's representing himself in this trial, where arguments are set to continue tomorrow. Keenan Willard, WRAL News, Nash County.
Ford has already been sentenced to 10 years in federal prison from this incident for being a felon in possession of a firearm. If convicted of these state charges, he could spend decades more in prison.